Well, hey everybody, happy Thursday Live, and I have some very special guests this weekend with me. I think Lincoln might be with us too. Let's see. I know Gibbs and Bauer were like, there he is. So we've got Lincoln under the desk with the live Lincoln cam, and we have this is Bradley right here, my 2-year-old granddaughter, Blake and Nina's daughter. And this is Benjamin Dean. And Benjamin Dean has my middle name. And so that's pretty special, right? And the good news is Lincoln's licking himself, but Bradley and Benny aren't. So that's really, really good news. And so we have a couple of special things going on. The first time Benny was on Thursday Live was like when he was just brought home from the hospital, and I did a special setup at Blake and Nina's house, and we got to have Benjamin Dean on there, and now he's walking and doing crazy stuff, and I am positive that he's going to grab everything on my desk before this is over. And then this is Bradley, and she's got her bell dress on. And I'm telling you, she loves to spin with it and to make it nice. And I have a monitor right off here to my left, to your right. And that's what she's looking at. She's seeing her on the monitor right there. And I've got Daddy overlooking saying, how can we make them happy? But anyway, so I've been able to spend some real quality time with Bradley and Benny and Blake and Nina. And it's been really special having them here with us. And it's a lot of fun. And now Bradley's holding up Teddy. This is her very special Teddy animal. And she sleeps with Teddy. And what's Teddy going to say? What's Teddy going to say? You want Teddy to talk? All right. You want to go to Daddy? You want to go to Daddy? All right. So Benjamin's going to go to Daddy. Let's see if I can put him down. There we go. Can you go too? You want to go too? There we go. All right. Well, that was an adventure. And just so you know, I lost, there's Benjamin in front of the camera. And I also lost Lincoln. So now I'm totally alone. And that's the way it goes. And, but all right. Hey, if you're a guest here and you're going, that is really crazy town. What in the world is this that I've turned into? This is a very personal podcast. This is a time that I get to spend in very personal ways. Bye-bye, Bradley. In very personal ways with you. I get to connect with you, many of you part of the Northridge family, many of you aren't. And I get to connect with you on a personal level in a way that I normally don't. And so this isn't about being on the platform and being a part of our weekend services and our weekend production. This is really about sharing my faith through the reality of my personal life, connecting with you, and hopefully God uses Thursday Live as just a time when, in a world that has very little to cause us to smile about, in a world where you're carrying the weight and gravity of your responsibilities and your personal lives and those that you love and, all the things going on, we get to just take a break, take a moment, and reflect on Jesus. And I hope when you turned on Thursday Live this week, and you saw Bradley on one knee and Benny on one knee and Bradley on another knee, that you smiled. And if that happened, that's better than if you were turning on your favorite news channel or reading your news feed, right? And so if you did that, that's great. One of the reasons I have Lincoln here with me, and he is back, and I appreciate that, is because he makes many of you smile, and I appreciate that. And he makes me smile, I know that. But there's a kind of a secondary purpose that I had Bradley and Benny open Thursday Live with me, and I'm going to get that to in a minute. But right now I want to come over, and I haven't been able to engage any of you yet. And Sam Becker said, it's just so awesome to see the pastor of our church wriggling with kids just like us. So honest and transparent. Thank you. Not all are like you. We are blessed. Well, thank you. I've always said, family, for God first, family, and then ministry. And my kids being a part of our lives and ministry and our grandkids, it's really, really important to me. And Peggy Blood said, yes, Lincoln makes us smile. I'm so glad because he makes me smile, and I love having him with us as well. And just, if I could just say hi to so many of you. I see Gary Veenstra's joined us this weekend, this Thursday Live. And Gary just got to go to the shooting of the Feeding of the 5,000 with season 3, The Chosen. And I think that's just so awesome that Gary and Deb both got to go down there. He sent me a pic of them all dressed up and ready to go. He grew a beard for it and all that. And so, Gary, I'm glad you had a good time. I know I connected with you about that. But great to see. Lola said how adorable the grandkids are. And yes, they are. So, all right. So with that, I brought Bradley and Benny in to begin with because, and here's Bradley back. Yeah. You want to come over here, sweetie? There you go. Come here. There she is. You want to spin once? Do you want to spin? There you go. Look at that. Yay. Yeah, that's right. You've got the phone. Here's your ball back. That's awesome. I love you, sweetie. All right. So the reason I had Bradley in, did that make you smile again, by the way? I bet it did. It made me smile and then go, what am I going to do next? Here she comes. But spending time with Bradley and Benny and all of my grandkids, many of you don't know, and I never like to leave anyone out, but Roxanne and I have the privilege of having 7 grandkids, 7, and 4 with our daughter Carissa and her husband Mike, and then Blake and Nina with 2, and then our daughter Allison and her husband Matt have Cohen. They live out in Portland, but when I spend time, really hardcore time with my grandkids like we've been doing the last several days, it gets me thinking a lot about legacy. In fact, it's really important. I'm thinking a lot about legacy these days for a lot of reasons. Thinking about legacy because, wow, I'm in my 32nd year of being the senior pastor at Northridge Church. And you think of legacy when you're where I'm at. It doesn't mean I'm going anywhere, but it's, in the first couple of years, you're not thinking legacy. You're thinking, man, I hope I can get a foothold, and I hope I can do something that makes a difference. I hope I can be a part of building something, great, or allow God to build something great through me. And it's like anybody who's young and in their career, leadership. That's what you're working at. I hope I can. Like the little train. I think I can. And then, as you move into the early to mid stages, you're just driving hard. You're trying to manage it. In our case, God did so much at Northridge. I was trying to catch up and trying to figure it out. And how do we not just, touch people's lives, but dig deeper into people's lives and help them to live in the love of Jesus and live in the truth of Jesus and live in community of God's children. But now, 32 years as the senior pastor, I think a lot about legacy. I'm thinking a lot about legacy these days because I'm watching our culture change so dramatically. Just so dramatically in so many ways. I don't see it for the better. I just see a caving and a collapsing of any sense of a foundational truth or foundational value upon which we live. I'm seeing a divergence of philosophies that go beyond anything reasonable and sane in so many ways. I'm seeing the collapse of families or the view of families and what that involves and what it's about and the idea of raising kids and how it is. And I'm just watching things collapse. And even, a major exodus of many people who grew up in churches, from churches, and even older people from churches, and leaving for such crazy reasons, like political reasons of all things, how you handle a pandemic kind of thing. It's nuts. And so it has me thinking about legacy. How can we make a more significant and meaningful and lasting and secure impact in people's lives so it's not so fragile, if that's possible? And I want Northridge to leave a legacy of impact that helps to leave the next generations in our culture and our communities better. I want the next generations to be influenced by this ministry. And I don't want it just to be about, wow, that was a great service this weekend. Wow, that was a great Thursday Live. So I think about legacy from that standpoint. And I think about legacy about what happens when God, moves us on. There's never been a leader in history that didn't come to an end point. And what's going to be the legacy left behind? And then I spend time with Bradley and Benny in a deep dive fashion, and it gets me thinking about legacy. And I've told my son Blake this recently quite a few times. My oldest grandson's 15, and now Bradley and Benny are 2 and 1. And I think a lot differently as I'm with them than I did when the first grandson was born. I was still in my late 40s when he was born and that kind of thing. And I tell Blake, in touching them, my grandkids, I just held them on my lap and I got to touch them and got to see Bradley come and spin in her bell dress. And by the way, she's gorgeous. In touching them, I'm getting to touch the next century. I mean, all things being equal, no one's guaranteed the next day, but all things being equal, these kids are most likely going to live into the next century. And so here I am, a person who was born mid last century and then got to go through the turning of the century into the 21st. And by touching my grandkids, I'm in a very real way touching the next century. I mean, that's just crazy. It's not just my genes and my DNA. I'm literally touching that which will go into the next century. And I want that to be true for Northridge too. And even more importantly, as I think about it, if I can be part of waking my grandkids up to Jesus, helping them experience and live in his love and experience and live in his truth and experience and live in involvement in his church family as children of God, I can be part of waking people up to Jesus in the next century through them. Talk about legacy. And the same, I think, at Northridge, through you, and through the kids you influence, and through the grandkids you influence. And it's just, wow, it gives you a sense of longevity, a sense of impact, a sense of the importance of the moments we spend together and how we use them. I don't want to waste my life. I don't want to waste my moments. I don't want to waste my opportunities with you as the pastor and leader of Northridge, as a grandfather. And so in light of the importance of Jesus' truth to this world, in light of the importance of eternity, helping influence my kids and my grandkids and people like you who have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, helping my kids and grandkids to know and love Jesus is one of the single most important things I can do in my life. Bar none. If I can touch people today with Jesus, like my grandkids, I can be touching people for eternity in the next century. And this is something that I didn't just come up with, by the way. It's not something I invented. It's just a new way that I'm thinking about it as it relates to something God has clearly told us. And, when I had them here, I wanted them to be on Thursday Live with me, but then I wanted it to have some point of relevance. And I thought of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 9. And before I read it, I'm going to come over here and see what you guys are saying. I love my grandbabies also. Yes, Kathleen Scola, there's no doubt you do and should. That's fantastic. Lola said, I'm proud to be part of this ministry in the community, awareness and contributions. God bless you all. That's great. Oh, Keith Norris said, Ridge Kids Rock. That's our Northridge Kids Ministry. Ridge Kids Rock, the team helps us with our legacy. That's exactly right. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, this is where God really expressed this reality that we don't just have a responsibility to touch our generation, our moment, but we have a responsibility to touch the next generation, the next centuries of generations. And this is nowhere more important, God makes clear, than spiritually. And if I could just challenge you a little bit, I love water skiing, and I want my grandkids to be impressed with me water skiing even when I'm older. And I mean, I want them to think I'm pretty smart. I want them to think I'm all kinds of things. But in the end, the single most important impact I can have on their lives is the impact I have on their lives for Jesus, because that's the thing that lasts eternity. I see so many people these days and so many parents emphasizing so many priorities before the spiritual, before Jesus, before the Bible, before church. So many things. It's so easy to take precedence over. I mean, I see it with dance lessons and music lessons, and we have a school of performing arts at Northridge, so we're all for that. And I see it with sports and Little League, and I see it with academics and accelerated classes, and I see it with just almost everything that we want to introduce our kids to. But I'm seeing, and one of the reasons I believe things are deteriorating in our culture spiritually is I'm seeing so many people make the spiritual in church a later priority, a follow-on priority. Church can be one of the last investments we make. Spiritually teaching our kids, even in the home, we're opening the Bible and praying with them in the home. That can become a non-thing in our families, and it should be the most important, because so they become a great little leaguer. How's that going to touch the next century, really? So they become a great concert pianist, and that's great. We need concert pianists. But knowing Jesus as a concert pianist or just being a concert pianist, which makes the bigger legacy impact in the next generation? God said our first priority should be spiritual. Listen to what he said, Deuteronomy 6, verse 1. These are the commands. He says, these are the commands and decrees and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you, Moses is writing, to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord. The only way you can do it is if you're investing in fearing the Lord yourself and investing that knowledge in them, so that they can fear the Lord your God as long as you live by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life, so that you might experience God's blessing in your life. Then verse 3 says, hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey. There are a lot of things we don't need in this life, but the one thing we need for life to go well is Jesus Christ, is God. Just as the Lord, the God you gave, the God of your ancestors promised you. Verse 4 says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. The first priority of our lives should be the first priority of the touch that we make on our kids, grandkids, and anyone else we influence. It says, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. They're to define how you think and how you're compelled on your heart in all you do, head, heart, and hands. And then, what's the very first priority in parenting or in influencing others? Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. It's not enough just to do multiplication tables with your kids. It's not enough just to do grammar things and spelling things with your kids. I mean, have God's commands on your heart and then impress them on the hearts of your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. That means make God's truth what defines the activity of your life, your hands. That defines the philosophy of your thinking, your choices. So tie them as symbols on your hands representing your activity, the things you do, and on your foreheads, the way you think. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Your relationship with Jesus Christ should be so dominant that it defines how you think, how you love, how you act, and your entire household, the door frames of your house. He's not talking about just hanging scripture on the door frames. He's talking about your household being defined by Jesus Christ. That's how to leave a legacy. Of course, there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever. Come on, baby, you want to show your wings? Oh, look at this. She's got her wings. Look at that. cape wings right there. That's awesome. She's going to sit here while I continue talking. Here's the sad reality. Even if I have Jesus first in my heart, and even if I pour his love and his truth and involvement into my kids' and grandkids' lives to the best of my ability, there's no guarantee. Sadly, our kids and our grandkids, as you can see right here, have the dangerous gift of free choice, free will, just like we do. And God, here's where I want to encourage you. God was the perfect father, the only perfect father who's ever existed on this planet. And his first two kids, Adam and Eve, messed up royally. And all of his kids since have messed up royally, save for one, Jesus Christ, God's son, who's the only one who ever lived perfectly. So imagine that. God's not telling us that by having his commands on our heart and then trying to impress them on the hearts of our kids and grandkids, that we can guarantee that they will perpetuate that truth and waking others up in the next century. But he's telling us that that's the best thing we can invest in them. And then it's up to them to choose that. And I just want to say that, I've had disappointments and I've had discouragements in this regard, and I have fears about my grandkids and how this world's going to sweep them along in its culture. And God didn't ask me to own the ultimate outcomes. God just asked me to own my responsibility in this moment to show them a Jesus first life, a Jesus as the priority life, what a life looks like when you're living in his love and living in his truth and living in involvement in him, and then trying to help others do the same. That's all I can do. And if I could give you some encouragement, God's not asking you to take ownership and not asking you to be totally defeated if your kids use their free choice or grandkids to go in different directions. He's only asking you to continue to try and influence with your life and with your words in positive ways, not nagging ways. And God only asks us what we can do to live and share Jesus, and then to trust him with the outcomes. And that's what we have to do. And I know some of you are living in the discouragement of that, and I know a little bit about that. But I do want to give you this hope. It's found in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is a book of general wisdom. It's not a book of absolutes. It's a book of general wisdom, where God's saying, do you want to know what the general probabilities are, what the wise investment generally leads to? This is what it does. And listen to Proverbs 22:6. Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they're old, they will not turn from it. Another translation says, train up children in the way they should go, and even when they're old, they will not turn from it or depart from it. And I just want you to know, if there was never a life devoted to Jesus touching a kid or a grandkid, there would be nothing to turn back to. There'd be nothing to grab onto. And it's not that God can't reach people who grew up far away from anything Jesus-oriented, but if we start them off in the right direction, then there's a great chance for them. The wisdom is that the great probabilities are they're going to turn back to him. They're going to turn back. And I've watched this generation after generation of my ministry, where teenagers start turning away in college, the influence and craziness, and college is nuts these days. And then they go away, and in their young years, they turn away. But when they start having kids, so many have returned and said, I want my kids to have that. And it's kind of a natural cycle of life. And so this isn't a guarantee, but it is a general wisdom that when you start your children off in the way they should go, when they're old, they will not turn from it. There are other ways to look at that. If you help your kids find what God's gifted them and called them to be, then they won't turn away from that. They'll want to engage their calling. But it all starts with whether they have a relationship with Jesus or not. And that should be our priority all the way along. So the legacy I want to leave for little Bradley here is, we want her to have fun, and we want her to enjoy, the whole Bell thing, which she loves, and we want her to enjoy so many things in life. But more than anything in the world, we want her to know Jesus. Because if we touch her with Jesus and she falls in love with Jesus and lives for Jesus, we could be touching lives with Jesus and for Jesus in the next century, which is really, really cool. All right. So that's kind of the direction I wanted to go. Is that okay? Did I do okay? Did I do okay, huh? Yeah. Another thing I do with her every once in a while and that makes her laugh is I imitate her like this. Look at. Okay. All right, I'm coming over to you guys here, and then we're going to pray. They'll appreciate it later for sure. Amen. That's a beautiful legacy. Love it. Train them up. Thanks, Lola. Gorgeous, smart girl with the wings. Yeah, look at these. They're awesome. She loves these things. She is all little girl, and I'm going to tell you something right now. She's very creative. She's crazy creative, just like your daddy and mommy. So it's pretty neat. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pray, and then I'll give you a couple final thoughts, and we'll get out of here. And I love that you joined me. Thanks for letting me share my loves and my life with you just a little bit. And I hope that this has helped you a little bit. Yeah. You ready to pray? You want to pray with everybody? Okay. I'm going to close my eyes and pray, okay? You want to do it too? All right. Jesus, thank you so much for Bradley. I pray that you'd bless her life and keep her safe and sound and let her go into the next century touching people for you. I pray for every single person that joined Thursday Live right now. Bless their lives. There are some of us that are just really discouraged. And I just pray that, God, in your grace, we'd find encouragement. In your truth, we would find your hope. In your truth, we would find your joy. In your truth, we'd find your peace. And help us to live in it. Be with each one. Help each and every one of us seek to live for that which matters most, you, Jesus. And then those we touch, we'll touch for eternity. And we'll thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah? All right. Hey, everybody, don't forget this weekend at Northridge, we're continuing our series called Relationship Jenga. And by the way, I don't know if you hear him or not, but Lincoln's going crazy right now. Come here, buddy. Come here. Yeah, he's just all wanting. He's fired up. And then, so Relationship Jenga, it's going to be a great service. Pete's teaching. It's going to be phenomenal. And then next Thursday, what do we have? Thursday Live. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. See you next time.